I was about 8 years old.
He was just a little boy, growing up in Savannah, playing the sport he loved, wearing a cardboard helmet.
I loved it. I really did. I liked participating. I liked the competition of it.
When it came to football, Taz Anderson was better than just about everyone else.
Now this is Georgia Tech Hall of Fame.
A star at Georgia Tech, he went on to a successful career in the NFL, playing for St. Louis.
He's off and winging with a beautiful touchdown peg to Taz Anderson that gives St. Louis a 7-0 lead at halftime.
I was Rookie of the Year in St. Louis.
Ending his career as an Atlanta Falcon.
Would you please hurry?
I'm going full speed right now.
That high-level, intense competition came at a price.
Most of my good parts are replacement. I have 2 artificial knees and 2 artificial hips. I've had 12 stents and a heart bypass.
Taz's wife, Greg, puts it this way.
We've been married 41 years, and in those 41 years, he has had 41 surgeries.
But there has been another cost.
I was missing things that I would miss the point in a conversation.
This successful businessman started doing things he'd never done.
He went to a meeting one time, a month ahead of time.
The NFL, confronting the profoundly debilitating effects of concussions, notified former players.
It said you need to go get a baseline on where your cognitive thinking is.
He said he did get several concussions where he remembers seeing stars, you know, like you hear, but they sent him right back in.
Taz and Greg went to Emory. Working with Dr. Alan Levy, Taz went through a series of tests that led to a diagnosis of mild cognitive impairment, a condition which can worsen and may eventually lead to Alzheimer's.
Now that Dr. Levy is helping us, I'm more patient and try to be more understanding, and we try to work through it now. Whereas before I was just going, you're crazy, you know, it's just, God, you're driving me crazy. And now I don't do that anymore, but it's scary.
It's sending chills down my spine thinking of the potential for the first time.
The help and hope for patients like Taz Anderson is greater than ever before.
We've seen hints of promise for the first time from clinical trials that may actually show signals that things are able to be slowed, which is a small but huge step. It's one thing to...
Dr. Alan Levy says after decades of research, they are getting answers, and what they've learned is astonishing, that neurodegenerative diseases overlap, are connected, and often begin the same way.
So while we thought about these diseases sort of as different chapters in a textbook, in reality, they often coexist. Let me give you an example. About a third of people with Alzheimer's disease also have changes of Parkinson's disease in their brain. At least that many have also changes related to vascular changes as occur in stroke. We think now that some of the underlying changes that happen in the brain in Alzheimer's disease are the exact same things that happen in depression. Brain inflammation, for example, is common to both of those conditions. The pathologies of Lou Gehrig disease sometimes occur in the presence of Alzheimer's disease, sometimes in Parkinson's disease. So all these different pathologies are really present in a very complex manner. We're beginning to learn that the presence of one disease might actually play some role in triggering and accelerating some of the other pathologies. One of the things that really seems to tie all these together is brain inflammation. It might be a different insult that sort of triggers the changes in ALS or Alzheimer's disease or Parkinson's, but what happens is the trigger then starts a common reaction in the brain.
A Family Affair has helped Dr. Levy and Emory take their efforts to the next level with the creation of the Brain Health Center, a world-class facility where patient treatment and research trials into neurodegenerative diseases happen under one roof.
We've been able to bring together faculty from across multiple departments, experts in Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, psychiatric conditions like depression. All these diseases also have another major thing in common, and that's the root cause of the disease starts decades before symptoms begin. We have to identify the earliest changes decades before the brain actually starts failing.
The work being done at the Brain Health Center will have a global impact on how Alzheimer's and other neurodegenerative diseases are diagnosed, how they can be delayed, treated, and eventually cured.
We've started developing new care models. We have an absolutely transformative gift from the Goizetta Foundation, which is allowing us to study 100,000 people in the metropolitan area and to begin to predict what are the changes that occur in a person 20 years before they get Alzheimer's disease. This is a huge opportunity for us not only to predict Alzheimer's disease, but to predict who's going to get Parkinson's disease. Other causes of dementia include frontotemporal dementia.
Emory's Brain Health Center has established a transformative partnership with Georgia Tech, a perfect marriage of research and technology.
So this is a phenomenal opportunity to bring together the best of Georgia Tech and Emory, scientists from across different disciplines at each institution, to work together around a common goal, learning how to predict and prevent brain health disease.
So the first thing we're going to do is calibrate your gaze to the screen.
Something as simple as looking at beautiful art
You can see the infrared lights on the sides here.
can tell researchers if you're at risk for a neurodegenerative disease.
It is pretty accurate. It's amazing.
Georgia Tech's Dr. Ayanna Howard, professor and Linda Smith Chair in Bioengineering, explains how this eye gaze monitor works when patients are shown images of art.
What we do is we actually monitor the eye gaze. And so we'll show an image, we'll show another image that has a slight change. Some of them are very subtle, some of them are obvious. And we look and see, where do the eyes focus? If the eye doesn't notice, what that means is that your short-term memory is not catching it. And so that's an indication that possibly you might have early stage, and earlier than if you were going to be diagnosed in a typical setting.
Georgia Tech and Emory are working to develop eye gaze apps we can use at home on our own devices, making it easy to collect our data and transmit it to our doctors.
It's fantastic. It opens up a whole new world for us, but with the least amount of invasiveness for the subject. Right.
Cece Manzanares, Associate Director of Research at the Brain Health Center, says eye gaze is already being used with patients and is critically important and accurate.
It's a great way for us to be able to monitor cognitive change in people as we see them year after year.
Now, of course, this is South Bend.
For all these reasons, Taz and Greg are hopeful.
I want to try to help to find something to cure what this disease is, and I'm thrilled about that. I mean, that's really exciting to me.
And he's not going to go anywhere. He's going to stay here and drive me crazy for the rest of my life.
Oh, me. That's, I can't argue with that.
A family affair began with one family. Mary Taylor lost her husband Mac to Alzheimer's and Lewy body dementia 8 years ago.
She came to me and said, "Alan, I'm ready. I have the energy and we're going to do this." And it's like, wow, I didn't know what I was getting into. It's like, buckle up, Levy.
Mary's passion for this cause seemed predestined. Mac was not Mary's introduction to neurodegenerative diseases and conditions. 4 of Mary's family members had non-familial brain diseases. Her youngest sister has suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder for 40 years after surviving a deadly train crash in Belgium in which she was the sole survivor in her car. Her oldest brother, a former college football player, suffered from severe depression and was diagnosed post-mortem with stage 2 CTE, a progressive brain disease resulting from football concussions. Her younger brother suffered severe oxygen deprivation when hospital nurses overdosed him on narcotics. He lives with myoclonic tremors. Her brother-in-law died of Parkinson's disease.
We'll get started in a second.
4 of Mary's family members were treated by physicians at Emory's Brain Health Center, and that is where Mary herself is now being treated. Diagnosed 13 months ago with bulbar ALS, a rare form of spontaneous ALS.
I can wake up some mornings and I feel a sadness or depression. It's kind of that close, and I just push it away. I don't have time for it.
It would be understandable. logical even, if Mary's focus turned inward after her diagnosis. It has not. She remains focused on the future of brain health.
Just because you're diagnosed with a brain disease doesn't mean you put everything on the back burner.
Mary says these words as a newlywed. She married Dennis Lockhart 2 months after her diagnosis.
Perhaps the biggest burden I feel was putting my husband through the journey.
But Mary and Dennis are veterans, she with her family in Mac, Dennis with his wife, who died after a long battle with a brain tumor.
The experiences we have, Mary with Mac, me with my late wife, are what make us the person inside. We have a wonderful life together, and I fully expect that will go on for quite some time.
He knows what he's in for, but to have to go through it twice seems grossly unfair. But we're best friends and determined to look at life optimistically. You never know. That miracle I expect from Alan and his team might be right around the corner.
Dennis now heads up the Brain Health Center's Advisory Council, and as the president and CEO of the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, he sees the issue of brain health from a global and economic perspective.
The country certainly has a tsunami coming of expense related to treating these diseases.
Mary has spent decades focusing on the future. ALS has brought her to the present.
Because I don't think about what I'm lost. I can't afford to think what I'm not going to be a part of. I have to focus on the joys of the moment.
There are a lot of joys in that they found each other at this time in their lives.
He was my first and only day after my late husband died. It was a miracle. I told him first that I loved him.
While I was driving, I came close to driving off the road.
That thing that can get lost when we focus on disease is life. It doesn't end with the diagnosis. Love and laughter are still there. And more than ever, there is reason to hope. Each day brings new discoveries, treatments, revelations. It is why Mary's life will remain dedicated to brain health. Her words, ones to live by.
We don't have time to wait.